Salutations. I must express disappointment with the Marxist-Leninist community at the current time. I'm extremely disappointed with the vast majority of you folks right now. It's like you are stuck in this echo chamber of never-ending circle jerking on Twitter, debating theory and linguistics and horseplaying around with these delusional breadtube idiots and pseudo-Marxist intellectuals who can't translate their demented theories into literal practice. At present, you need to get off of Twitter and get onto Truth Social, because that's where the online battles are happening right now. If you're going to appeal to conservatives and working people, you need to be where they are in real life and online. I can't be the only Marxist-Leninist presence on Truth Social, doing the work of deprogramming the Q crowd and the right 15 hours a day because nobody else is doing it. There needs to be others to pick up the slack. This is a team effort, and I'm just one person. Many of you are not currently doing that. Some of you are, and some of you are. Shout out to Damn Taffer, an anti-establishment disliker. You have been a real help, and I do value your camaraderie. But we need to expand our presence beyond Twitter and start dismantling liberal arguments as the liberal trolls flood Truth Social as a means to harass conservatives and everyone else, including us, who isn't going along with their imperialistic program. This is not a drill. And once again, I can't do this all by myself. As Chairman Mao once said, out of the movement and into the masses. And you are still in the movement when you need to get to the masses, and you need to get to them now. Having been involved with the anti-imperialist scene for almost 2 decades, I must express these are extremely perilous, if not morose times. Our socioeconomic conditions are deteriorating rapidly. The bourgeois are squeezing us in every conceivable way. Gas prices, food prices, rising rents, low wages, industrial displacement. And a vast majority of our citizenry are gaslit into believing very dangerous rhetoric that could potentially spell out the annihilation of human civilization as we know it. You need to get to the work of educating and agitating like there is no tomorrow. Because for all we know, tomorrow may not come. On one end, you have Democratic Party liberal partisans openly flirting with the idea of initiating a shooting war with Russia. But do not put it past them to turn their aggression towards China. Not unlike the Republicans who think they work for China when, no, they don't. You know, maybe Biden engages in shady business deals with some bad actors in China, but he's not engaging with, Xi Jinping. The liberals of 2022 are akin to Bush supporters from the early 2000s. They are a bunch of ideological thugs. That's right, you're thugs, who inaccurately term everyone opposed to them as, quote-unquote, right-wing fascists and conspiracy theorists, even when they themselves, despite their socially progressive front, are the very right-wing fascists that they accuse everyone else of being, and have little to no understanding of political theory, long-term history, neoliberal imperialism, or any understanding of geopolitical affairs. They call themselves the left, and the ignorant conservatives call them the left as well, but they are not the left. They may look like they're the left, but they are not the left. They are 1% apologists, and they are the running dogs of neoliberalism and neoliberal imperialism. Trump derangement syndrome has caused for these people to lose their ever-loving minds, as I keep saying, and lose sense of the fact that the neoliberal economic system is the problem, and they fail to understand the structural reason for why people, most people I should say, voted for Trump. And it's not because they're racist, sexist, bigoted, no, but because Trump represents a very minuscule deviation from that neoliberal economic system and its champions, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and now Joe Biden. They're not communists. They're neoliberals. The liberals uphold and defend the economic order that we seek to uproot, and essentially are modern-day anti-communist Reaganites with woke characteristics, but with extreme elitism and classism and utter disdain for the working class, and these liberals do not want to improve material conditions in this country, more so as they want to destroy this country and erase it from history. The liberals are not our friends. They are the enemies of the American working class, and they are the enemies of the American people as a whole. Don't let their progressive bullshit fool you. And they are doing really inappropriate and weird things with children right now. Sorry, but that's a fact. And we must combat and harass them wherever they may hide, and we must cancel them for being fraudulent leftists when they try to cancel us and slander us for being right-wing conspiracy theorists when, hello, stupid people, we are the left. On the flip side, let's talk about rank-and-file Republicans, because they're marginally less better and yet are still extremely problematic. To begin, the Q-Anon cult needs to be eviscerated and destroyed. This ideology is demented beyond any conceivable measure. They associate Marxism with bourgeois Malthusianism. They think Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, Prince Charles, and Greta Thunberg are communists. When, hello, no they're not. They call George W. Bush and Mitch McConnell communists. Not unlike the liberals who suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, these people on the right suffer from communist derangement syndrome, as if they're wholly ignorant to the fact that our problems are rooted in neoliberal finance capitalism. Instead of blaming the actual problem, no. They'll blame like the Khazarian Mafia, which is an anti-Semitic conspiracy trope, or the cabal, or people who drink blood, and all this other weird shit that blames everything except for the actual fucking problem itself. Letting these desperate but demented half-wits have the anti-corporate and anti-war narrative was the biggest mistake the left has made this past decade. We need to reclaim that narrative, and we need to knock some sense into these idiots who have no sense of dialectical or historical materialism whatsoever. Stop fucking around with Twitter intellectuals and get into these QAnon communities now. Now let's address the MAGA's internal hypocrisy with their war against the rhinos, aka neocons. These people think anyone who is against Trump must be a rhino without weighing in the ideology of what is a rhino. Rhinos are far-right Christian fundamentalists who want to turn this country into a theocracy and who think somehow being LGBTQ is satanic and think early-term abortion is a satanic ritual. These people are also utterly demented. Rhinos are obsessive over Israel. They have more loyalty to Israel than they do to the United States. And they openly call for regime change in China, Syria, Venezuela, and Iran. And you know what? Even Russia, too. They want to nuke Russia as well. As essentially, they claim support for Trump with their lips, but they embrace the Bush doctrine with their hearts. This group of people are extremely dangerous and are akin to a political death cult. Just look at what they did to Iraq and Libya. But the problem is they're interwoven into the MAGA community, and the legitimate MAGA crowd, which does reject endless war, which does reject neoliberalism, and who do reject George W. Bush, haven't quite figured out who their friends and who their enemies are, because they continue to be led astray by rhinos like Ben Shapiro and Dinesh D'Souza, who present as Trump supporters, but who go to great lengths to conflate Marxist-Leninists with the Trotskyist left. These rhinos need to be exposed, outed, and driven out of MAGA. And who better to out and expose the rhinos than the so-called missing anti-war left that fought both George W. Bush and Barack Obama? Who better? Folks, I gotta say it again. Stop fucking around with loser wannabe leftists and pseudo-intellectual Marxists on Twitter and get to the real work of deprogramming the Q community, diminishing the neocon influence within MAGA, and bring the fight to the neo-fascist DNC partisans and expose them for the progressive frauds they are. If socioeconomic conditions are going to collapse tomorrow, you have to set up the organizational framework today, not tomorrow. We have to rebuild the anti-imperialist left. We have to reclaim the anti-corporate narrative from these psychotic Q-Anon ding-dongs, and we have to do this now. The bourgeois liberals are tipping their cap that they want to impose another medical emergency lockdown over the monkeypox. Once again, they are playing their dirty political tricks at the expense of an already exasperated and crushed working class as the election draws closer. We weren't ready to organize a resistance back in 2020 with COVID. We got caught off guard. Let's not get caught off guard this time. Direct that proletarian outrage into a revolutionary direction. Do not allow for that outrage to be directed by literal right-wing fascists into destructive ends, i.e., dragging us into a war with China. Or even worse, dragging us into a civil war. We have to stop that. The mission before us is stark. This is a matter of life and death. The task before us is not an easy one. We will be dealing with attacks from all fronts, left and right, but we have to stick together and we have to win over as many people as we can. And from that new crop, we can rebuild the anti-imperialist, anti-war left and resistance coalitions as the bourgeois attempt to drag us into World War III. In closing, I implore all anti-imperialists to officially divorce themselves from the left and leave the echo chamber and establish presence. And by establishing presence, not relying solely on Pella in hostile territory. Nobody said that this work was going to be easy. We're going to put up with a lot of bullshit and a lot of insanity, but get out of your comfort zone and expand into new horizons, especially when such is needed to be done at this very critical point before we find ourselves plunged into the most socially turbulent time that this country has seen since the 1860s. This is not a drill. It's time to get serious, because we cannot let the political establishment drag us into a conflict that could potentially mark the end of human civilization as we know it. It is up to us to rebuild the anti-war left and not waste the precious little time we have right now on lost causes and pseudo-intellectual Marxists on Twitter who don't know what the fuck they're talking about and don't know how to translate their concepts into reality. Let's get to work, folks. Chop, chop. All right? God save our American state. This is Comrade Pella, signing out.